Hard Hat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
Hey, Bobby Manning here, Noa Dalzell alongside, and welcome to the Celtics postgame show. Celtics escape another 2-point game against the Pelicans, an undermanned Pelicans team, even more so than the last time they saw them earlier this month. And some scary moments late, missed free throws, Trey Murphy going off for 38, I believe he had in this one. Threes raining from him without 40. Got up to 40, just one short of his career high. So another game that makes you uneasy about this team, but a good ending. Jason Tatum winning it at the buzzer. Jaylen Brown pouring a big shot in late. I like the flow between them in this game, and it was their first game in a while, Noah, that they both had it going throughout. Both started strong, both closed. And for Tatum, who even in this game, making shots similar to Wednesday night, not always looking super thrilled about the way his night was going on some of the calls and whatever else was going on out there. I think important for him to get that shot to go and be able to build on that throughout this road trip that they're beginning here.
Yeah, definitely. This was the first time in a minute that it felt like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum both had good games. And, Jaylen was playing some of the best basketball that he's played in a while. Like those mid-range shots just haven't been falling, and tonight they were. And he's just a different player, and this is a different team when those fall. And then secondly, this is Jason Tatum's second game winner of the season. First one was the 3 versus Toronto, but he had such a bad stretch last year where he was like 0 for 12 at one point, and he just felt like indebted that it just wasn't going his way in late game situations, especially at the buzzer. I'm never like a huge fan of that shot, but it is a shot that he's been a lot better at this year. And ultimately, like to see that go through is great. And for him and Jaylen to both hit their mid-range look in the final 30 seconds, like that's what they needed. A lot of uncharacteristic things that happen, or at least like kind of uncontrollables. Like they went 3 of 8 from the free throw line in the last 5 minutes. Porzingis missed 3. That's like kind of unlike him. He really has been so consistent in those moments. So I thought after the bank 3, and I thought this might be one of those games where they just don't pull away because of a lot of kind of things that they left the door open and ultimately had to pay for it. So I thought ultimately like that's 2 in a row. We haven't seen 2 in a row in a minute. So you're muted, Bobby.
Don't love the game. I didn't love long stretches of this one. I didn't love the way they let the Pelicans stay in it. And I didn't like the way they started the night guarding Murphy. But again, a win's a win here. I think Tatum's starting to build a nice stretch to close the month. And this obviously the last game of January. Difficult shooting months for both Brown and Tatum. We've talked about it. But I wrote about it after last game, though. I feel like Porzingis can be a good connector for them. And obviously he missed all the free throws late. And the brutal last 2 that could have put the game away. I still love the ball going through him. He had that nice pass to White down the stretch for an important 3 as well. Every time he got the ball, it felt like they were scoring in this game. You saw the deep threes. You saw him getting to the free throw line. You saw him finishing inside. And I feel like right now he can be that connector between Tatum, between Brown. Those guys aren't always playing off each other, aren't always in the actions together. And I think that's, along with rotations, caused a little bit of the separation and unevenness between their performances this month. But now that you have Porzingis in there, who they both can target, who can make a play himself, and is a guy who you can actually involve in actions and pull some mismatches in the play, I feel like he's a good facilitator for them to finally be able to find some balance offensively right now. And in this game, again, I feel like there were stretches, even on a 5 for 12 night, where you could just give it to him and you knew you were going to get some amount of points on a play. And the defense was great too. I think he had 5 blocks at one point. Moves down to 4 for some reason or another. I don't know why.
He's constantly moving down. Every time I look at his stats, like he loses stats by the end of the game. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and of course a tough call against them in the closing minutes there on the no goaltend. Free throw misses you mentioned, not typically something we see from him, but another night, another game he gets through fully healthy. They seemed to limit his minutes a little bit in this one. It was a long stretch between the third and the fourth where he wasn't in there. But once he got out there, he was the solution to all their problems. And I've said this many times this year. No, I feel like they need him this year. Obviously, they went to the playoffs last season and won without him for the most part. They brought him off the bench when he was there late in those final stretches. I feel like now he's going to have to be central to everything they're doing. And obviously the big conversation after last game was, what does that look like? Because he really hasn't been there a lot for them over the last year and change here.
Yeah, and I that makes me nervous because obviously he's dealt with a bunch of injuries, but I do think he's looking more. The last few games, I do think that he's been more of a connector. One thing it was kind of weird. I know Eddie House talked about it on the broadcast, but Joe subbing him out on defense and putting Allen like that one position.
That was
off,
weird.
Yeah, that threw me off. I wonder if there was something there that we missed, but he was. I thought he was. Yeah, I was a little bit confused what why he was doing that. I mean, we've talked about it. Like, we really trust Al and crunch time defensively. Like, he makes the right decisions and things. But yeah, from a passing standpoint, like, this was a good game. He obviously it wasn't one of his scoring explosions that we've seen over these past few. But yeah, it was good to see. It was good to see just even contributions throughout their three. I almost want to say they're three all-stars. I know KP's on all-star, but I feel like the level that he's played this past month, at least, he's been in that, that caliber of play. But really just seeing Tatum and Brown be consistent at the same time together, like, that's what the hallmark of this team has been over the past few seasons. And to get to see them to do that together again, I don't know the exact stats, but when's the last time they both had 27 points? It feels like it's been a minute.
We can look into that. But first, we'll bring in Sherrod. Sherrod, how you doing? Big night for the
wonderful.
big three.
Yeah, it was a little bit, I'm going to be very transparent. After Jalen made the shot that put him up, and then the Pelicans came back down and tied it, and I'm looking at Tatum's doing the dribble that he does.
I'm right there with you.
I'm thinking, we're going to overtime. And the shot that he took was a great shot. I mean, that's a shot that Tatum should make 9 out of 10 times that he takes it. And, of course, he knocked it down. But we have seen time and time again he doesn't make it in that particular moment of the game. So it was good to see Tatum close this thing out with a big shot. Good to see him and Jalen both really come up big down the stretch for the Celtics. And that's, I think that's something that I think Noah kind of alluded to a few minutes ago, where it really is unusual for a game like this to come down to big plays down the stretch, and you can look at Tatum delivering a dagger and Jalen doing the same. So that was good. And Porzingis, again, continues to be the best player, the most consistent player on this team. When you talk about just high impact night in, night out when they're on the floor. It was a weird game from the officiating standpoint. I thought they did a good job for the most part, and then they just had like about 2 or 3 brain cramp minutes where they just missed some pretty obvious stuff. I mean, that goaltend, even without the replay, something didn't look right about that play without even reviewing it. And for them to miss that in real time, it's disappointing. But the basketball guys have a way of balancing that stuff out. Good win against it. I think whenever you have streaks against teams that you dominated and they know it and you know it, it gets a lot harder to keep it going. We saw that with Houston. We see it tonight. Pelicans, I think they came in winning 8 in a row or something like that. This was a hard-fought game, and it's a good win, good road win. And now it's just on to the next one.
Yeah, of course. The backdrop here, no Zion. The illness knocks him out of this one. No Hawkins, no Tice. So a bunch of rotation guys out for them. And then pretty early in this game, DeJounte Murray goes out with what looked like a pretty major injury. He was struggling a little bit to start the game. I feel like they were containing him more early in this game than they did in that last one where he went crazy. But I was thinking, you, Sherrod, who are we going to circle going into this game? Who are you going to be like, we got to stop this guy? And with Zion out and Murray's going to get more coverage, I felt like the guy you had to think about containing and being all over and not losing was Trey Murphy, who's been fantastic all year, who's a known shooter.
Well against you.
Yeah, and maybe their only shooter in their lineup tonight, given the personnel that they had out there. Mm-hmm. He got 3 open looks with the guys either hedging off him or lost or stuck behind a screen early in this game. I think he hit 2 of them. And that just, we've seen it so many times, Sherrod, to start this year, or in the first half of this year. Guys just allowed to gain rhythm early in these games because there's not enough attention to finding them, or they're trying to ignore them or play off them. I don't feel like that was the case here. I don't think that was the game plan, but they still ended up giving him great looks early in this game, and it built into a near career night for him in a game where you really didn't have that many guys to account for offensively with all the guys that were missing, especially once Murray left this game. So that drove me crazy watching the game in the first couple minutes.
It feels like, Bobby, sometimes that they come into these games with a very defined game plan. And when things shake down where guys are, instead of being maybe the 5th or 6th player you worry about, they become number 3. They don't recalibrate the game plan to account for that. When the game started, Trey Murphy was probably at a certain point in the scouting report. But obviously, when things happen, he naturally becomes more prominent. And it seems like they don't necessarily adjust as quickly as they should to that increase in prominence that players have. And it's frustrating because for those of us who are watching the game at home, when you see, DeJounte Murray go out, you're thinking, okay, Trey Murphy's probably going to get a few more looks. Or, if there's no Zion, well, again, there's a domino effect where guys are going to get more opportunities. And it just seems that the Celtics kind of have this almost like pre-scripted game plan that these are the guys that we need to worry about. And even when they're not there, we're still not going to change or deviate the game plan enough to account for the changes. And it's frustrating because it just doesn't make sense, particularly for a team that has such a high basketball IQ like the Celtics do. I mean, you're not talking about a team, with a bunch of, lunkheads who aren't basketball savvy. They're really smart, but they don't always do smart things, particularly when it comes to recalibrating the game plan on the fly.
So it was interesting, though. They forced 7 steals in the first half. I think they had 5 blocks or something like that, or Porzingis had 5 blocks by the time halftime came around, early into the third quarter there. So they were disruptive, but they're not disciplined right now. And I feel like they're letting guys break free for shots that if they're just tighter, there's better ball pressure, they wouldn't be giving up. They're overcompensating to a lot of the dribble drives right now, and that's giving up some of these catch and shoot threes. And what concerned me in this one too, and I know he's starting to come around, he had a pretty good game here again tonight. I thought they beat White bad a couple times late in this game. CJ got by him for a couple floaters. Trey had that near 3-point play over him there. And so he's a guy you count on. He's a guy that is obviously all defense the last couple of years here, but whether it's his health, and I know he talked a little bit about it the other night that, he's not 1,000% healthy right now. I saw a vulnerability from him on the defensive end that, as you said, there's some uncharacteristic stuff we're watching in this game. And that was one to me that really stood out. CJ went by him a couple of times and got to that offhand. Trey hit that and one over him late in this game. And he's the guy, Holiday's the guy, and I don't think he's been quite the same defensively this year. Those are guys, and you've talked about it, Noah, that you're counting on to be great. Like they were great a year ago on both ends. Hasn't been as much the case this year. He's coming around offensively. But that stood out to me in crunch time there, the couple baskets that he gave up when, if you have him on a guy, you should feel pretty good about that, especially a CJ McCollum who's a little further in his career. Even Trey Murphy at that point in the game, you think if you're able to hold him to a mid-range shot there that you're feeling pretty good about it, but wasn't the case.
Yeah, and we're seeing news just came out that DeJounte Murray did in fact tear his Achilles, so that's unfortunate. I think that's kind of what it looked like. But I think absolutely, like the Derek and Drew both have been a step slow. And the question I think everybody's wondering is like, are they kind of just, I don't want to say load managing, but a little bit saving their 100% best effort for later in the year? They both played the Olympics. They both played through June. Like, I don't think Derek White at age 30 or 29 is suddenly like a worse defender, but I do think that he's been dealing with a bunch of different things. Some of them have been on the injury report, some of them haven't. And he's in that, year after a finals run, after an Olympic run. It's a very specific overlapping of miles that, very few players have in the league right now, right? It's literally just him, Drew, and Luka and Tatum. That's like it, right?
Yep.
Guys that were in the finals and also played in the Olympics. So when I look at Derek, like that's most likely what this is. I don't think that he like suddenly forgot how to play defense or he doesn't care. But I probably when we could see behind the scenes, like the treatment that he's undergoing, like there's probably some stuff he's dealing with, whether it's the knee or the ankle. We've heard there's been a bunch of different things that he's been listed for. That being said, what I do really agree with though is like the early game lack of intensity on certain plays and certain players. It's why you're now banking in a 3 at the end of the game. Like how many times have we seen this where it's like, okay, that's just a lucky shot, but it's not lucky, right? It's like that guy's feeling it now. He's gonna bank.
And he's a good player.
Of course, yeah, he's a good player. I don't think the game plan, like you said, I don't think the game plan is to get him going, because if you look at this roster and Jake Eisenberg from First of the Floor tweeted before the game that he's going for 42 tonight, just given the circumstances, and he literally went for 40. So I do think like this was not the game plan to let him go off, but he hit some really tough shots at the end of the game there. He really did. And so there's a balance of like just, I don't know how much the analytics take into account players' individual confidence and how that might impact their late game shots. I was talking to Dana Barros a couple weeks ago at Peyton Pritchard's one-on-one tournament, and we were talking about like the analytics, somebody who played in the NBA, pre the analytics era. And he said that he gets the analytics, they kind of don't let you down, and that's why the Celtics won the championships. Like over time, things do pan out, but that there's a couple things that aren't necessarily accounted for. Like star players are very rarely in foul trouble now because you're not going for it because that's not what the analytics tell you to do. So there's a couple things, and I think like that confidence swing, like with the Dylan Brooks effect, where you had a few empty ones and open ones, and now you're 40. Like I don't know how much the analytics take into account that. Like I almost feel like the equation needs to be like shifted a little, because it feels like all the time we're seeing guys just kind of get so comfortable early on that later on they're in this position.
Yeah, and there's 2 things going on, Sherrod, here. This game, I think, is a case of breakdowns happening, not that they're trying to veer off Murphy or play away from him or dare him to shoot. And that's happened with other guys. Obviously, Dylan Brooks, that was the case the other night, along with some breakdowns. And obviously, I think their transition defense is a little vulnerable right now. But the question is, does this matter come playoff time? Because it's leading to a lot of slip-ups in the regular season. Noah mentions like over the course of many games, does that guy continue to kill you? And those guys have killed them throughout the first half here. It's been really strange how it's happened. And they're obviously a bit perplexed by that happening too, is so often here. But I will give them this. I think if say they're playing the Pelicans in a series and Murphy goes off for 40 or whatever it is right now, I do think they would adjust game to game and react to that. You remember the Nembhard stuff with Indiana there and TJ McConnell and all that. Those guys killed them. They had big impacts throughout that series, but it didn't amount to much. Like they kind of dealt with the blows, and then those guys slowed down when it mattered late in games, and they were able to pull those out. So I will give them that. I don't think a Dylan Brooks or a Trey Murphy is going to knock them out of the playoffs here, whatever one of those guys goes off. But the fact that it keeps happening in the regular season right now, and they don't seem to have a great solution to it, whatever the reason is that this keeps happening, it just adds to my concern about the defense. And I've just been so frustrated watching them defensively at times, Sherrod, give up these massive nights to guys that they should be able to just put some ball pressure into and contain.
Well, the breakdowns that you talk about and some of the bad things we see also, they have the potential to lead to just some, just bad habits developing. And I think that's the real concern, that these little things, they're not going to, derail their regular season. But when you get in the best of 7 and you're playing a team that you should be better than, with these little things could make what should be a 5-game series into a 6 and potentially 7-game series if you're not careful. They're the players that you have to consume yourself with worrying about, who are really good. And then there are the others who, if you allow them to get confidence, they can become Dylan Brooks and go off for 36 points and make 10 threes. Or they can be Trey Murphy and hit you for a 40 piece and only need like 15, 20 shots to do so. So my concern more than anything, Bobby, is just the bad habits that they're potentially putting themselves in the crosshairs of developing, and how those bad habits can unfortunately, manifest themselves at the absolute worst time. And something that Noah said earlier that I think is really noteworthy is that when you allow guys to get comfortable early on in games, I'd be curious to see what the analytics say about, like, when a guy makes his first 3 shots and they're all open, what does his end of the night numbers typically look like? And then when a guy takes his first 3 shots and are contested, what does his numbers look like at the end of the night? I think there would be a radical difference, and which you would then be talking essentially about 2 or 3 possessions. Actually beginning the game playing good defense for the first 2 or 3 possessions. How much of a difference does that make in some of those, the non-superstar guys having good nights or having typical nights for them, which most of the time for a team like the Celtics isn't going to hurt you in terms of wins and losses.
I did want to bring up Springer tonight. He wasn't a DNP, Noah. He got good 30 seconds.
Why does Bobby say that with a smile, Noah? Why does he say that with a smile? Hey, did you notice how he just perked up when he says Springer DNP?
No, I think he's pro Springer.
I'm pro Springer. I want to see more of him. We're talking about defensive issues right now.
Bobby's on the dark side now.
He's playing well, Noah. So I do want to get to him, but first we're going to give a shout out to first our super chatter here, PR Max, Celtics fan for life. Let's be honest, defense has been suspect. This is in the NBA. This is the NBA. Every team has players that can torch us. And it's been too frequent. I think we all feel that way a little bit, especially after this month. And January is finally over, so maybe that's gonna shake off whatever's gone wrong with the team over this month. And again, they win the night. It's a positive show. That's how it goes. But there was a lot to not love from this one, and it obviously was a dangerous finish there.
Positive show, you said?
It's gonna be a positive show as much as it can be.
Okay, I'm checking back in 15 minutes on that one.
I'm going to try my best, but first, let's hear from Game Time.
This episode is also powered by Game Time, the best place to get tickets to the games, events, and concerts you want to see. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Game Time is filled with terrific features like all-in pricing, so you know exactly how much you're paying. No surprise fees at checkout. You also get panoramic views from your seats in the app, so you know exactly what you'll be looking at before you buy. Plus, a lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Once again, download that Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. What time is it? It's Game Time.
Shout out to Game Time. I was looking at the Philly chart. Noah and I are heading down to Philly, Sherrod, for the game on Sunday, and I saw $73. So a tough-ish ticket, but some attainable stuff there in the balcony. It's always going to be a good crowd there. I'm interested to see what the crowd's like, Noah. You've been tracking that a lot this year. New Orleans was obviously a Celtics crowd tonight. You could hear it even after some of the missed calls late. And much of the season, Celtics fans have invaded arenas around the league. Sunday's going to be a fun mix of Sixers fans who are obviously a little pissed at their team, but also apathetic toward Boston's team. And I think that Sea of Green's going to be mixing in there too. I'm interested to see what that atmosphere is going to be like. And it's always a really fun game down there at Philadelphia at Wells Fargo there. And this is the first time that the Celtics are heading down this season. We're going to hit on the Sixers later in the show. They lost tonight, but they've been finding a little rhythm with some of their guys out recently. So it's going to be an interesting game on Sunday. And of course, you can go to the Game Time app if you're in Philadelphia and check those out. Big game up on Tuesday as well at Cleveland that the whole basketball world will be watching. The top 2 teams in the East right now, potential East Finals preview. So go check that out. So let's hit on the bench a little bit. Hauser came back here for this game. Horford came back after missing a couple. Hauser got going early. And overall, I feel like he's finding that rhythm a little bit late this month. And Kornet just continues to play well. I'm going to give him a shout out here because I thought he was awesome, Sherrod. He's one of the NBA leaders right now in net rating. And I think you see it when he's out there. I mean, he had some great putbacks in the fourth and finishes around the rim, block, a couple assists. And when you're watching him these last handful of games here, he's really getting the offense moving too. So I'm going to give I haven't done it in a while, Sherrod. I felt like I had to do it here tonight because he played another phenomenal game, I thought, coming off the bench with some physicality, some finesse, just great stuff, great minutes from Kornet right now. And it, again, in a bad month for the Celtics, or, worse than usual month here, one of the league leaders in net rating. What do you got to say to that, Sherrod?
I'm just amazed that you have been able to contain yourself this month when it comes to Luke. Luke's played well. I mean, Luke has done a lot of really good things. He's showing some things that we didn't really know he could do. I mean, like Luke, in this game, he did some things that I don't recall him doing with any type of frequency or even infrequency. I mean, like Tatum found him on, kind of a roll to the basket where Luke takes off from like around the free throw line, 2 big steps and finishes with the left, draws foul. And that's stuff
and
that
one.
You just don't see. Yeah, and one, right. And so that's just not in the scouting report on Luke Kornet. And I think that's, Luke, he's got to continue to do that. He's got to find ways to contribute in ways that aren't as predictable as they've been up to this point. And I think he did a good job in January of doing that. And, February, it'll be interesting to see as they get closer and closer to the playoffs and getting their kind of, foundational group together for that. What are we getting from Luke? Is he going to continue to kind of grow into this role? Is it being maybe a guy that can give them a little bit more than just setting good screens and some good, passes from time to time? Can he be a guy that can finish around the rim? Can he be a guy that Tatum can actually, throw that lob to, and or Jalen can throw the lob to? Will we continue to see him grow as a player? And then January was a great month for him. There's no doubt about that. But what's next? Can he build off of this going forward? That to me is the big question with Luke Kornet at this point.
I feel like he's one of the guys you're most confident in right now, Noah. Like, he's taken that backup or third center role and ran with it right now. And even in that game on Monday, looking back at that, I loved his minutes with Porzingis. I feel like they could almost use a little bit more of Luke right now. 102 defensive rating this month when he's out there. Obviously, there's limitations.
Slow down.
Luke's
Certain
been
matchups
great.
it might not go as well, but he's been great.
He's been good,
Yeah.
but slow down, Bobby. Just slow down. Go ahead, Noah.
I think the other thing is I just like the fact that he's taking some minutes from Al Porzingis, guys, that there's just no reason that in a January game versus the Pelicans, either of those guys need to be playing heavy minutes. And so obviously Porzingis, he's had a healthy month, knock on wood. It's been a good stretch for him. Couple straight weeks here of just getting better and better. But like, I love the fact that you can play Luke 20, 25 minutes a night and not feel like you're sacrificing a whole lot in a regular season game. The jury's still out on the playoffs. I think that we've seen him now have 2 really good regular seasons in a row, but he really wasn't much of a factor in the playoffs. And so I'm curious to see, like, is he going to be able to assume a bigger role? But it's kind of like Pritchard, where, it's going to depend on the matchup, but also just he's contributed to a lot of wins this season. He really has. Like, the net rating stuff, if you look at that list, who had it earlier, Bobby? You sent it to me. It was Sean Grandy?
Yeah, I'll
He's
pull
like
it up.
a-
It
he's-
won't be up
yeah.
there for tonight, but
Yeah, before the game, so it's SGA, Isaiah Joe, Alex Caruso, Luke Kornet, and Isaiah Hardenstein. So it's 4 OKC players that the Thunder have been historically good this year on both ends, and then Luke Kornet's just in the middle there. And it's not a coincidence ultimately. Like, he has been providing them with really high quality minutes, and there's the things that are his weaknesses. They're always going to be his weaknesses to an extent. Like, he's like the late game defensive things with Jalen. We never figured out exactly what was responsible for that, but he's not going to be somebody else. He's going to be himself. But I've been so impressed with him offensively, just what he's been able to almost give them like another layer to their offense. And that's not the vision that I think we had for Luke a year and a half ago, that he was going to actually be able to enhance the team's offense. And I do think that he has.
yeah, gets in good spots for handoffs. The screens are great. Again, I think, and people are coming around a little bit. I think the chat's coming around on him, but I think for so long it was either the appearance or maybe just the finesse offensive style he plays there. And he has gotten better on the offensive glass. I think he's gotten better at playing and finishing with physicality, to Sherrod's point there, the and one finish. So there's a lot that's gotten better from his game. Even the stupid Kornet contest that we loved back then, like, that's disappeared a little bit too in favor of some better contests here. But the most important thing is I think he just gets the offense moving a little bit. He throws a lot of passes, good handoffs. That stuff just flows nicely. Even his dives to the basket really do attract some nice vertical gravity out there to free some guys up. And Tatum and him had that little sequence late in the game, Sherrod, where they ran a couple pick and rolls and he got an alley-oop dunk, finish in the lane too. And those were plays that helped separate the Celtics at the start of the fourth there. So I don't want to go too far with this, Sherrod, again, but I thought he was a really big part of this win here.
Well, you know what, Bobby, what we're seeing with Luke more than I think anything else is that the things that he's doing out there, they don't feel gimmicky. Like he's actually doing basketball big man plays. When you're rebounding in traffic, you're catching lobs, you're rolling to the basket, you're finishing with the left hand. You're doing the things that if you're 7 feet tall and you play in the NBA, you should be showing signs of being able to do these things. And he's doing those within the confines of the team concept. It's not like he's going out of his way to do these things. These things are just happening in the natural flow of the game. And I think that's why Luke, teams are going to have to recalibrate the scouting report a little bit on him, because he's no longer just kind of the third center that they're just throwing out there to just hopefully they can get by the next 10, 15 minutes and not be devastated with him out there. He's actually able to help the Celtics when he's out there now. And I don't think that has always been the case. I don't think he has played always with that type of confidence. And that is, again, I give him a lot of credit for, frankly, elevating his play and making it so that when they do put him out there, you're not cringing at the thought that, God, I can't wait to get Luke off the floor so that we can, so that the Celtics can get back to winning and start putting this team away. He's actually just helping this team in the natural causation of how this game is being played out. So I give him props. He's done well lately.
Yeah, and again, chat was mad I glossed over Hauser. Good stuff from him tonight. Glad he came back from the hip injury and looked like himself. All those threes were early, so not a ton from him later in this game, but a good start and solid minutes. They need him right now for this lineup flexibility. I did want to hit on Pritchard, Noah. This is another just lackluster performance for him, and they're stacking up here in January. Obviously, 15 plus points was the norm for him. And John had a good tweet about this earlier. They'll pull up. But it took him until the third quarter to score. That's all he did for the whole game there in terms of scoring. And out of all the games in January now, only had 4 with 15 plus points now. So we were debating, is he going to be a big, substantial part of this team this year? Is his scoring increased and he was running away at the 6-man race and all that? Or is he going to cool down at some point and be closer to some of the inconsistency we've seen from him in the past? And for whatever reason, this month just hasn't gone his way by and large. Are you getting a little concerned with his performance?
No, not at all, because it really hasn't. He hasn't really cooled down that much. He's just shooting way less. His last 10 games, 48.8% from the field, 44% from 3 in his last 10 games. So that's 64% true shooting. Like that's as good as it gets for an NBA guard. So he's just taking way fewer shots.
Why hasn't he been as involved as much, you think?
Because, and actually, like I talked to people within the organization as KP was coming back, and like it was pretty well understood that Pritchard taking, Pritchard was going to be one of the guys that loses some shot attempts when KP comes back. Like those shots were going to come from somewhere. And it's not, I don't think it's people's instinct is to be like this, the 7-footer is back. So the 5'11" or 6-foot guard is going to lose his shots. But like at the end of the day, they have to go leave from somewhere. And I do think that him and Derek are 2 of the guys that have taken the biggest dip. And, Derek's talked about it openly, but he's really just not. And I know people there's like a thing online about him like looking off Tatum. I don't really think it's true. I think that there's been a lack of just like team-wide ball movement that is more so than any one guy.
And I think that's hurt him too.
Yeah, but if you look at his assist to turnover ratio last 10 games, like 3.6 assists, 0.9 turnovers. Like his numbers are the same. His efficiency is the same. I feel like he's had some big contributions, whether it was the 9 assist game the other day or he had 9 rebounds.
3 steals tonight too. Timely ones.
He's finding ways to continue impacting the game. I just think you're seeing a decline. And I think we talked early on, but like some of those 20-point explosions for him, they were awesome for me to see. Like we all had fun watching it, but they were also a little bit of an indictment on the team because that's not really like this team is not built for Pritchard to come off the bench and score 25 every night. Like that's not what they were. That's not what the Celtics at their best should be looking like. So there's an element of that. I also think that there are certain guys that he does struggle against more, and I think it's the players that have the same tricks that he has, like Jose Alvarado. Who's the other one? I'm totally blanking.
The Sumu the other night.
Who's the guy? No, who's the guy in the Pacers?
Nemhard? McConnell?
No. McConnell, yes. Yeah, TJ McConnell. He's another guy that I feel like it's almost like he's playing himself a little bit, and he struggles more in those matchups, is what I've noticed. So, again, though, I looked at the numbers the other day because I was like, is he really cooling down, or is it just he's just cutting, his touches are going down? And it's more the latter, even though I think it feels like the former because it just felt like he was putting up crazy numbers early on.
These fans, Sherrod, they just want us to come on here and wave the green pom-poms after the win. It wasn't a great game, guys. I'm sorry.
Okay, it was a great game if you're a Celtics fan. You just watched a Friday night game and you got a game winner. Like, that's fun to watch.
I know,
Right.
I know, but the other team had half their guys out, and they have 12 wins on the season, and you almost lost to them. So it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag here tonight. We've tried. I've tried hard, Sherrod, here to lean positive, but there were some issues in this game.
Well, there are going to be issues every game. But the thing about Peyton Pritchard is that, and the numbers really bear this out as Noah laid out, he's still finding ways to put his imprint on games. And when you look at the numbers that he was posting earlier this season, it just wasn't sustainable for this team, the way they're constructed, for him to continue playing like that. And, when you got Porzingis, in and out of the lineup, and then your guys here and there, it makes it's great for Peyton because there's some opportunities to do some things he otherwise wouldn't normally get a chance to do. But as this team inches closer and closer to becoming at full strength, you understand that his role is probably going to change and be a little bit closer to what it was previously than what it was when guys are out. And that's fine because the thing about Peyton Pritchard, you want him to figure out ways to put his imprint on games other than just making shots. And that was my big concern for him this year, is that if the shots aren't falling or if the shots aren't coming, what's he going to give you when he's out there? He's not your traditional point guard where he's going to dribble, drive, find guys. He can do that, but that's really not playing necessarily to his strengths. I give him credit for finding ways to still impact the game. His ability to get steals, I think, is important. His ability to, get 2 or 3 assists and not turn the ball over very much. And maybe the one thing he does that I don't think he gets enough credit for is when he's on the floor, teams now have to account for his presence. And that has a tendency to trickle down and open things up for some of his teammates. And that's one of those areas of the game where he's never going to get enough credit for what he does in that regard. So even though, his numbers may be a bit down, let's not act as if he's out there getting filleted night in and night out, and he's giving them absolutely nothing, because that's just not reality. That's not reality. And I think that's the beauty of this team, is that they've got a number of guys who are basically in roles that are literally changing in real time, where one night you need to be a guy that can give me 20. Another night you just need to be a guy that has the potential to give me 20, so that Tatum can have a night where he can shoot maybe closer to 50%. Maybe Sam Hauser can get 1 or 2 wide open looks. Drew can knock down those corner threes without any type of resistance from the defense. Little things like that I think Peyton is helping his team with. That, again, it's important that he understands that and embraces that he doesn't have to be a 20-point scorer in order to help this team. And I think he understands that and is cool with that, which is why, again, his numbers aren't going to, I think, really reflect the impact that he's still having on games, even though he's not taking as many shots.
Yeah, and I think he kind of proved that last fall, honestly, when he couldn't make a shot. Like, I don't know if you guys remember how bad his first 10 games were.
It was brutal.
Yeah, and I remember Joe was like, I'm still playing him, and I've told him, like, you're at this point, you're due enough to be out there, even if your shot's not falling. He's not in one of those stretches where his shot's not falling, but I think the stretch that he had earlier this season, where he was kind of on an insane heater, like he was on the best heater of any guard in the NBA, and doing all those other things, like that was probably not going to be scalable to the entire season, especially with all the talent on this team. But I've seen a lot of chatter about it, so I haven't felt like he has been playing poorly at all.
Yeah, he's just
and then
not
on
doing
the-
what he was doing earlier in the year, which maybe was unsustainable. It was crazy what he was doing in November and December there.
Yeah,
the eye test is not raising red flags that, oh my God, there's something wrong here.
right.
He's
And I think
definitely
Noah
doing
has
it
it right there that the shots are just going down, which I think is an offensive issue, not a Pritchard issue. So that's Pritchard. I do want to give a second to Springer, Noah, because I have had the same thought as you here in a couple of
we
these
never did
games.
Springer.
We don't even have a Springer graphic because he played 2 seconds. Can he get a little run here? He's playing well. They need what he brings to the table. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're wrong, Noah, and he's not going to do well if they keep playing him or continue to put him out there in spots. But I don't get how he was great last game. Now 0 minutes or 30 seconds, whatever it was tonight.
Bobby?
And then that Clippers game was the Springer game, and you're getting run off the court in LA the next night, and he's not out there until late, and he played great late in that game. So there's obviously all this stuff of swirling around about maybe he's traded or whatever happens this week. But whether it's to show him off or whether it's to actually get some help from that defense of his, I don't know why Joe isn't going to him right now. I guess because everybody's healthy right in front of him and they don't want to take anyone else's minutes away.
Bobby, that's it. That's it. I mean, the only reason he was getting an opportunity was because they were shorthanded. And I think that's the way Joe views him. This is in case my main guys aren't ready to go, I'm going to open up, my insurance policy known as the Springer plan. And I'm going to go, and I give Jaden credit. He has made the most of the very, very limited opportunities he has had to play. But I'm telling you now, Bobby, if our good friend Sam Hauser can stay healthy, Springer will do the same thing you and me and Noah do at most games and watch. That's how this is going to work. And I'm not saying that's the right thing to do because I personally like guys who can defend at a high level. I like guys.
I want to see it.
Well, and we know he can do that, but that's not how Joe's built. I mean, think about the type of player that Joe Mazzulla would be building if he could get into the lab and build a player in the image that he wants that player to be. It would not be Jaden Springer.
No.
It so would not be
And that's
him.
the issue here, Noah. I don't think Joe likes Springer's game, which is fine.
To an extent. I mean, they did trade for him when Joe was coach. I'm sure he had some input, even though he likes to downplay his involvement in those things, but I'm sure he had some input. You don't think he had input, Sherrod?
I think that was one of those deals where, you know what, I'm just going to rubber stamp whatever you want. And I think for Joe, part of it is like, yeah, I'll take him, but I don't have to play him, right? Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's
in
the
case of
offense.
emergency.
Offensively, he doesn't fit in now, and that's why he's
Well, listen, it's a very small sample, but he is shooting 46% from 3 in January.
And that's the thing.
As
Like,
you
he's
pointed
playing
out,
well right
this
now.
is a very small sample, as you pointed out.
It's a small sample, but all he can do is make the ones that he takes in the games. So
here's where I'm at on this, Noah. Your other guys are tired. They're worn out. They're probably not giving you the best energy level right now at this point in the season. Why not just feed a couple of those minutes down to a guy like that who you need to funnel some minutes to develop and grow and gain confidence, and you need what he brings to the table right now. So to me, it's just Joe trying to win every game right now and trying to get this team back in a mix. And, he has trust for the guys who are playing and doesn't have as much trust for the guys who aren't. But it just buries and ruins the momentum of the guys who are on that bench who maybe have a good showing here or there and then are just right back to the bench, as Sherrod said there. So, again, this isn't something I want to harp on too much, but I do feel like the last couple of nights they could have used him that way.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see him out there. I just enjoy watching him play, so I think it'd be fun. It just mixes it up. You'd be able to talk about him more, and it wouldn't be as ridiculous. But I do think that he's looked good in his stretches here this month. I think that he has a gift defensively and that the jury's out on the offense. I know this is not super scientific, but I always show up early and watch the guys warm up. There's a noticeable improvement in Jaden Springer's shot, in his release and just in his efficiency. And I'm not going to name names, but watching the Stay Ready group warm up last year, like at 3 hours before tip-off, it was a brutal watch. Like some of those guys that were on that before the trade deadline, you can think for yourself who they are, but just air balls, like some of you just would not guess they're NBA players, honestly. And Springer has really come along with a shot. And so you're seeing it in games, but that's the big question on him. Like if he was a good 3-point shooter, he would be, I don't know, a starting guard in the NBA. Like he'd have he'd be a completely different person as far as where he's at in his career. And so it's just a question mark because we just haven't seen it enough, but they have like behind the scenes things that they're tracking these guys' 3-point performances much more scientifically than like these 10 attempts that he's taken in January and me coming to warm up. So I'm assuming that he's still not hitting those marks, and that's what's holding him back for more extended minutes. And I feel like most people that cover teams, most fans, everybody wants to see the head coach play the starters a little bit less. Like we could be covering the Knicks and the high competition would be even more inflated. But I think coaches just struggle with doing that. It's not a Joe thing. I think it's kind of league wide, especially when you know what works, and especially when you have your starting group and you want to develop that chemistry and work out with the issues that you have. And we were talking about switching up the starting lineup a few weeks ago, and I think Joe wants to figure this out with this group, and he doesn't really want to change anything.
Everyone loves the backup.
Yeah, everybody loves the backup.
Everyone loves the backup until the backup has to play, and then you realize there's a reason why they're the backup. I like that Springer, again, he's making the most of his opportunities, but he is an in case of emergency player. He has not done enough to gain the confidence of his coach, and in part because he just hasn't had a lot of opportunities. So
we're gonna bring in John here. John, before you get going, I do have to do this read real quick.
No. You're fine.
What do you got, John?
Go ahead. You can do it.
All right. I didn't want to wait too long before we get into it here, but Prize Picks, big game right now.
Woo!
This is huge, John. Not like you need it, but Pat Mahomes, 0.5 passing yards for the big game. I think he's gonna get that. I think
I'll take it.
You got to look into
Bobby,
here.
you're doing great. I'll be right back.
And this is probably the best time to go over to Prize Picks because there's a lot of interesting guys in this game. It's a great matchup, Sherrod, obviously. Your Eagles, the Chiefs. A couple years ago, this was a 38-35 game. So just offense flying everywhere. I know the Chiefs are better defense this time around, but look at some of these things you're looking at here for this. Will Saquon Barkley rush for more than 112.5 yards? That's what we're talking about as a more or less for Saquon Barkley in this game. And these are the kind of numbers we're going to see. Jalen Hurts, 215.5 yards. Kelsey, 62.5. Will Xavier Worthy have more than 56.5? So check Prize Picks for up-to-date player projections. That's what I like going over there for, just to see what they think guys are going to do on any given night. And again, right now, up until that big game, 0.5 passing yard square for Pat Mahomes is pretty much a free square for Pat Mahomes. And you know the deal over on Prize Picks. Pick 2 or more players, pick more or less on their stat projections, and you have your team for the big game. And you can just enjoy it all the more over there by having some guys involved that you want to see do well there. And again, I like that Barkley one. He's been out of this world, Sherrod. I know it's a high number, but I want to root for Barkley. Obviously, everybody's going to be rooting for the Eagles in this game, more or less. But I want to root for Barkley because he's just running through the world right now. So that would be my team going into the big game here. That Pat Mahomes free square and Saquon Barkley, even though it's a big rushing yard number right there. But again, go over to Prize Picks today, use the code CLNS, and get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup, along with that Pat Mahomes square. Again, CLNS gets you $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game, and still just over a week to build your lineups over there over on Prize Picks for that big game. Welcome in, John.
Hey, guys.
Hey, John.
I don't have much to add. I actually came here because I have questions.
What?
Oh.
Explain it. Explain to me. Explain it to me because I can't understand it. The amount of good things that happened in this game were many. You had Tatum and Brown both going off for, you get the combined 55 points or whatever out of that. Porzingis gets 7 stocks. You win the turnover battle. Sam Hauser comes in. He's knocking down a couple of threes. That looks really good. You clamp down on defense at the end when you really need it. And you win by 2. Statistically, I can't understand looking at this box score how this game was close. And I know everyone will say, well, Trey Murphy went off for 40, and that's it. I guess, but like give 3 of his makes to 3 other Pelicans and call it even. It wasn't like a shooting variance game either. How was this game close? What am I missing?
He missed 8 free throws.
I know
That was
you
a
missed
big
the free
part of it.
throws late. Sure. You traded late. You traded fourth quarter turnovers for missed free throws, like in
Yeah.
terms of like what's kind of messing with you here, but you
It was
lost
the
3 of
defense, Sean. It's
you
another
lost
game we
three-
just
you
weren't.
lost 3 of 4 quarters to the Pelicans without 3 of their 4 best players. And I can't understand it because it didn't look bad, but
Jackson points out the rebounding there too.
the rebound is the
was
one
pretty-
statistical area where there's a big differential, but still, again, almost everything else is going in your favor here. I can't figure it out there.
Well,
Like, what am I missing, Noah?
I think they shot 40% from 3, so
Sure,
it's always
the Celtics
hard.
shot 39.
Right. Well,
But I'm saying, like, it's not a huge shooting variance game. Like, it's not like, oh, God, they hit everything and the Celtics were ice cold. Something like that might explain how a team like the Pelicans, without its best players, could stay close to you. But you basically played them to a standstill, and they shot well, but that's fine. It wasn't like ridiculous number. It was a 40% game. I mean, that's fine. The NBA average is 38, 37. It's not a ridiculous game. That's why I'm really confused by how it's so close, because you look at the numbers, you'd be like, God, they should have killed them. And again, someone mentioned empty possessions. I do think sometimes Celtics are kind of taking plays off and just letting them hang in there. It's like, 3 good plays, one. I can't figure it out. I can't put my finger on it. So I'm curious what you guys think. Like, how is it so close?
You know where I'm always going to go, John? It's the defense. I think
Yeah.
that they get in the stretches where they're just funneling away points. Start of the fourth, they gave up points on 6 of the first 10 possessions there, and that brings the Pelicans right back into the game. There were stretches in the game where the Celtics started to separate themselves a little bit, but they just can't rack up enough stops right now to be able to turn these games into double-digit leads. The shooting's obviously not where it was, and there's another game where you didn't generate as many threes as you normally do. So teams are running you off the 3-point line. That margin was closer, as Noah mentioned there. And the offensive rebounding was a big one here, too. A lot of second chance points for the Pelicans in this game. And this is the frustrating part about this team, though, to me. Your defense hasn't been intense enough to separate you. The shooting hasn't been intense enough to separate you, or consistent enough, really. You don't have a lot of depth to your scoring either. And obviously Brown and Tatum were struggling until tonight. So you almost come into every game, I don't know if you feel this way, Noah, expecting that whether it's the Pelicans or whoever here, whoever's playing or whoever's not, that it's going to be a rock fight. And, they'll do their whole, we're going to get everybody's best shot. But that's kind of where they're at right now, is that their opponents are playing well. They're not playing great. Their defense hasn't been consistent.
Right, but what aren't they doing?
So it's going to go right down the wire.
Was it defense? Is it just not consistent enough defensive effort? Because again, you're not going to say they left Murphy open all night. They did, and a lot of those shots were contested. A couple were deep.
Early,
sure.
They did.
Early, sure, but then he really earned his money after that, and even the drives to the basket were tough shots. He was not, hitting gimmies all day long. So like he definitely earned it, and he definitely got on a heater. But like, what was it? Like what else beyond that? Is it a lack of perimeter defense? Is it the J? Someone said here the Jays aren't paying attention. Like I mean, aren't playing consistent defense here.
What?
I don't know,
John. I think part of it is people.
I don't know.
And players that they have counted on to be almost like those game changers defensively are not doing that. Drew Holiday. Derek White
got blown by a couple times for sure. Yeah,
they weren't horrible all game long, but those are guys that typically they make plays that basically shut the faucet off on other teams and then start the floodgates for the Celtics to start pulling away and beating the crap out of teams. And they just haven't. They didn't do that tonight, and they haven't really done that as consistently as we saw a year ago. And that guys like Trey Murphy, all of a sudden they get real comfortable. And even when you're defending them well, because they were able to get off to a great start, that doesn't end. And you would think that when you don't have the kind of firepower that they were missing, that all you got to really do is just kind of lock up Trey Murphy, and you win this game by 20, 25 points. Easy.
That's the
But
thing. They just were missing so many other guys that you think you'd be able to throw extra pressure at them. So I am going to look at the coaching again, John. Just
I
not
just don't
But
like
I
the
don't
way
know.
they
Like I
calibrate.
said, I can't figure it out. It feels like a good win, but
it was.
but
It was
it's
the free
still,
throws late. It was some of the turnovers and offensive
Yeah.
rebound. Like a lot of stuff just prevented.
maybe
them from
that's it.
separating
Maybe
themselves from
if
this
Murphy
one.
shoots 50% and they hit their free throws late, it's a 16-point game and nobody's talking about it. I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean,
And that's part of the weird stuff that's going on right now, Noah, with them. Every game, it's a little different with them in crunch time. It's like, all right, one night White's committing a 5-second violation. Tonight they're missing free throws, which they don't usually do. Something just seems to be popping up every time that there's a close game late. And that's a concern to me too right now. And
might have needed
again,
some
credit
Stringer
to
tonight.
yeah. No, we just talked about that for a good little stretch there, which I do agree with too. Like if
Yeah.
guys are tired, if there's not enough intensity right now, look to the bench for that. And they're not willing to do that. Although Kornet, Hauser, and I think
A good
Horford
Luke game. You had a lot of good. You have so many positive things. So many boxes to check. I don't know.
On the flip side, though, if you're the Pelicans, you're sitting there saying, we got 40 from Trey Murphy. We got 20 points off the bench from Jose Alvarado. Like that, why didn't we win? Like I think I hate to always say this, but I feel like the difference between the teams that are whatever their selfless record is 32-15 and the teams that are towards the bottom of the standings isn't that they can't compete with one another. It's that the Pelicans are the team that doesn't come ahead in these rock fights. The Pelicans are the team that can't execute down the stretch. And I think what we saw from the Celtics last year, particularly in the playoffs, is that they were able to be in a battle all game with the Pacers, but their veteran wisdom, their experience, their ability to kind of be smart and poised down the stretch is why they were able to win games. And that's why like the late game execution stuff, the fact they haven't been the same this year is something that has stood out because they've lost some of those games that go back and forth where you're like, all they had to do was like 3 things and they didn't do those. And so in these games like tonight, what stands out is like they missed a bunch of free throws down the stretch they shouldn't have missed. Tatum missed a wide open layup, but they were able to still, great shot making kind of salvage that. But they don't make those shots. We're sitting here. We're not talking about, I don't think, about 48 minutes. I think that they didn't execute in the fourth quarter to pull away when they could have. And honestly, like Derek's gotten a little bit of flack from us, and I think it's rightfully so. Like he has taken us up defensively, but he also made some huge defensive plays tonight. Like the double with Tatum.
Those drive me crazy. What Derek White did back-to-back plays with the let the guy go by and then the tap from behind. Oh my God, I used to get so mad when people would do that, but they were great defensive plays. They were
a lot of steals in this game too, which again, to the defensive point, as bad as they were at times in this game, they blocked a lot of shots. They forced a lot of turnovers. It was a weird one, undoubtedly, and it was a weird month. Like this month was just one big WTF across the board with them. Like they had some amazing wins.
Yeah, I mean,
the Minnesota one, the Houston one. They had some awful losses late in games. The Atlanta one, the Houston one.
I'm conflicted. Noah mentioned all of this stuff. Like, what the other team has, this guy go off for 40. Do they expect to win? No, they don't. They're missing Zion and DeJounte Murray, and they're not. You needed 60 from a player, to make up for all of the lost players. I don't think you can expect one guy to get hot and to win, and I don't think they view that as deserving. And I don't think the Celtics won because of the Celtics and the Pelicans lost because of the Pelicans. I just don't know why it was close at all, and that's where I'm stuck right now. Because the worst thing is, the worst outcome if you're a Celtics fan is that you played well, and that's about as. That was the proper result, because last year it'd be like you play well, you win this game by 30 points. So playing relatively well, if they played well, then that's more depressing. Like I'm trying to find out what they didn't do well that I didn't fully see to be able to understand why the game was as close as it was. Like I said, you lost 3 of 4 quarters in this game. You gave up 34 in the fourth. It wasn't great.
Right.
There's something missing, and I can't quite exactly figure out what it is. We're talking about ball pressure, perimeter defense, whatever that is, or are they just all a little bit? This is a good Celtics effort. If it is, I don't think that's great, right? Like I feel like last year this is a 40-point win.
No, it's been a confusing month in that sense.
It's confusing.
Too.
I'm not trying to be negative for the sake of negative.
Can we start a new thing?
I can't figure it out. Yeah.
I think after every game, we should say, did the Celtics play well and did the opposing team play well? Because a lot of times the Celtics play against, who was that the other night that was in Boston? Who was just there? Houston. No, on Wednesday.
Chicago.
Chicago. Yeah, Chicago played terrible. Chicago was such a bad watch. Watching Chicago, it's like I almost feel like we can't even talk about the Celtics because Chicago gave nothing. And so I feel like we have to better contextualize, like, okay, the Pelicans played well today and the Celtics played well. And on Wednesday, the Celtics played well and the Bulls played terrible. And so, like, there's a certain level of shot making tonight. Like, they really were at their best. And I know that we always are going to look at the injuries. We're always going to look at who is out, but we all know. I mean, we've all been watching enough NBA basketball for years that this is the dream for these other guys. This is the opportunity for Trey Murphy to be the guy. You know, this is an opportunity for guys to get increased shots, and they are the best players in the world ultimately. And I don't know about the Celtics bench. I don't know that if right now you put the Celtics bottom 5 and gave them increased opportunities, like if those are the kinds of caliber players that are going to start running the offense through them. I don't think Tillman's going for 25 tomorrow, but there's a lot of these guys on NBA benches that are just waiting for somebody to be injured. And I do think, like, that's why I never look at the schedule and say, oh, the Thunder are playing the Pistons, or the Thunder are playing the Wizards, are maybe the one team this year where you can kind of put them in their own league. Maybe last year it was the Pistons, but it's just like, I don't know. I just feel like it doesn't have to be a huge story of like why this game was close, because
Sure, but what it doesn't have to be, let's do the reverse, right? If it's not a big deal that it's this, would we be talking about it differently if it were a 30-point win? Like, oh, back on track. That was good. They needed that, right? So, like, if we're going to do the reverse, if we would have made a big deal about facing a Pelicans team that did play well in eating a Trey Murphy 40 and going out there and drilling him by 25 or 30 points, we'd be saying, wow, that looked like a Celtics-like performance. So the flip side would be like, well, I guess it didn't look like it. Like, it goes both ways there. If you're going to call out one thing, you have to look at it if the reverse were true.
Also,
we'd be making a big deal. If they're steamrolling these teams, we'd be, oh, this looks like last year's Celtics. That's what I remember. But it's not. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. There's an explanation. Your explanation is perfectly sound, Noah. It makes sense. They played a pretty good game, but like that didn't matter last year. And you have a fully healthy team right now, and you got good games from the Jays. Something's missed. Something's there. I can't see it because this is not how we would have reacted to this game last year. And last year they probably beat this team by 100 freaking points. But we've watched this game. So yeah, it does matter who's playing. It does matter who's on the other side.
And, we've watched this game a bunch of times this month, and that's the frustrating. If this just happened once out of 15
it's again the Clippers with no one, same thing. It's like that matters. But
the stuff they do matters too. Again, like you build a 6-7 point lead, and then you come out of timeout and you give up 2 shots the other way into 1 point game. The general lack of inconsistency from them within the flow of games, I think, is what's frustrating here. And you're right, Noah. Guys played well on the other side. That team played well. They're getting good resistance here on a lot of different nights, but they have a standard that they have to play to, and they haven't met that in a lot of these games here, and that's frustrating to watch for me. Like a game like this to me, given what some of the guys did in this game, to John's point, Kornet and Tatum and Brown getting going, and all these different performances, it's frustrating to me that they squander that with, whether it's missed free throws or giving up an offensive rebound or sub patterns, whatever you want to blame some of their inconsistency on right now. That's frustrating to me because, listen, they win this game. Tatum makes that shot, a tough shot at the end. And, he deserves a lot of praise for that. I love that play to close this game from him. But if he misses it and they go to overtime and they lose, it's like, oh man, it's another brutal loss. And that's the position they put themselves in at the end of this game, despite all the good things that they did there. And again, I know the Pelicans did a lot of good stuff to make that happen. But when you're up, what was the fourth quarter lead? 7? It wasn't 12 like the other night, but it was another lead that just disappeared like nothing out there. And I don't know if it's fatigue, John, or them just thinking that they get a small lead and they're good to go and they lapse
playing too slow. Other teams athletic, double big.
The pace is awful right now.
Conceding threes, not creating any ball pressure. Whatever that is, I just think you're letting teams hang around here. I really feel like this is a game they should have just stepped on their throat and let it get away. The one that frustrated me, that I tweeted about it. The area that frustrated me, and it was interesting because then Tatum got yanked was in that third quarter where, he drives and he scores, but he wanted the foul and he didn't get it. And then he's late getting back on defense talking about it. And that resulted in a 3 from the Pelicans because he didn't join the play. So it's 5-on-4 the other way. And then he doesn't get a call again, takes himself out of the play, jogs back. It's another bucket. That was 5 points. You tell me if this is why this happened. Joe went back to original substitutions in the first half, right? The Tatum plays and Brown goes out at the 6-minute mark. And then it reversed in the third. I don't know if Tatum got taken out because he kind of got in his own head there and did the little sulky pouty thing. Because overall he was playing an outstanding game prior to that. But and then he had a bad, then he forced the issue on another shot and took a foul, I think, too. So it was a weird little stretch there for him in that third quarter. And I know JB had 2 fouls again, so I don't know if that's what changed it or what dictated it, because that's what happened last game also.
Yeah, I think they're going to stick with what they're doing at that.
Maybe, yeah, because it's twice now that Browns had 2 fouls in the first quarter and had to come out. So, but that was a weird little stretch there, and that was kind of emblematic of that was where that you needed to put the hammer down and put them away, and they kind of hung around there in the third, and you enter the fourth quarter, and it's a game.
Yeah.
So. I don't know. Like I said, but overall, I mean, it's hard to argue with the good Tatum did. There's a ton
They're
of it.
going in the right direction, John. And to that point on Tatum,
there was a lot to like about tonight. Yeah.
I feel like there is hope that game winner can, along with the good performance here and a couple of better performances we've seen the last couple of games here, that can get him going. That can probably improve some of the energy from him and just get him right back on the track. And I love the shot. It was a really good shot, a pretty shot. The 2 game winners you mentioned this year, Noah, both tie game situations, I believe. I think the Toronto one was a tie game in overtime. And instead of just launching the stupid 3 because they want to run out the clock and, put themselves in the best position and not give up a basket the other way, he gets to his spot and hits a comfortable shot for himself. So I think that's 12 game winners or game tying shots like that for him in that spot over the last handful of years here. So he's, again, guy that you like in that spot, and when he can get to that position. Yeah, but again, no one shoots well in those situations, John. So I like him in those spots. I just don't like the launching the 3 thing, and the fact that he hasn't done that on those last 2 there, I think is.
He went to work on a lesser opponent. He got the matchup he wanted. He hit a shot. It was a great shot. Yeah, and Brown the possession before. 2 clutch shots, no question about it. You guys talk about Pritchard?
3 of 6 last 5 seconds leader time.
And it's a complete departure from last year. Last year it was like we were all sitting there being like, why even give him the ball? He's missed every single one all season. And he just said, like, I'm due for one, I'm gonna eventually make one. And so it's great to see that back on track. It wasn't necessarily like everybody, I think people thought he wasn't clutch, and it was really just one off year where he was bad down the stretch in those moments, like really like late, that final seconds. But it is just really encouraging to see that. And I thought Jalen tonight had one of the best games he's had in a while.
I think so too, especially in that third. I thought there where Tatum went out and it was kind of his unit. I thought he was good. I thought he had an overall good game too. What happened with Pritchard? Did you guys talk about it? Are you worried, Noah?
We hit on that for a while.
Are you worried?
No.
Not at all?
Not at all. No. I mean, I think his shooting numbers are this, like the last 10 games, he's shooting 44 from 3 and 49 from the field. So it's really more just his touches are way down. And so the question is, like, can he impact the game in other ways? And statistically, he's one of the best assist to turnover ratios in the league in the last few seasons. I think defensively, there's always things that he's going to be better or worse, but I think like him having that intensity, that energy, like that can waver, but he's going to be one of those guys that is going to suffer the most from Porzingis coming back from scoring. I think Derek's the other, maybe Drew a little, but it's not the shots. The numbers aren't coming away from Tatum and Brown, whether or not they should.
He's low on the list of concerns.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be concerned if he was like making poor decisions, or if he was like on a really extended stretch where the early numbers are looking like a heater, but he's still been a very consistent shooter for them. And I think the other thing is that just like from a mental standpoint, you got to make sure that guys like Derek White, guys like Peyton Pritchard are not losing their engagement because they're not taking the same shot attempts. And so like we were talking to Derek after Dallas, and he plainly said like, yeah, part of my scoring dip is just KP coming back. The other part of it is like, I've been shooting like crap. Like he said both those things, but he's not a guy that I'm worried that Derek's going to stop playing hard because his shot attempts are down. I don't think Pritchard's that guy either, but I do know that Pritchard has this thing of like, he really believes in himself and he's obviously requested a trade before and all those other things. So like, that's the only part of it that I'm thinking, like from a mental standpoint, you got to make sure that the guys that are now taking a little bit of a dip, same as Drew. I mean, Drew barely shoots a lot of these games. Like it just can't, you have to find ways as a coaching staff to make sure that it's not impacting other aspects of their game. And I think you have a really unique trio of guards that are actually willing to take 4 shots and still play really hard the whole game, and not really the case in a lot of NBA teams. And that's kind of what made last year's team work in a lot of ways.
I got nothing. I was just coming here because I wanted to hear what you guys thought. Yeah, because I couldn't make sense of why the game was close. I still can't, but because like I said, there's so many good things happen. I just can't make sense of it.
Yeah, I'm not going to freak out about this one.
It's not a freak out at all. I
Yeah.
couldn't understand. I'm having a tough time understanding. I'm still leaving here. I don't think I'm going to get it.
Oh, yeah, I think we expected it. It was a great win on Wednesday. Friday, you come out and it's not as great here, but they won. So passing grade. You should be able to get through Philly on Sunday. You don't want another situation like this, so I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah,
we'll see who ends up playing in that game. But
well, Bobby, have we been saving this for the end? Are you ready for it?
yeah, I'm ready because I'm pumped about this. Man, talk
Bobby's
about
an
energy infusion.
The Celtics reportedly are among a few teams interested in acquiring Yabu.
So this is the crazy thing about this. Sherrod, you covered Yabu. It wasn't pretty. It's probably one of Danny's worst draft picks ever. And he goes to
the French
Madrid.
Draymond Green.
They waived him on
No,
his
he was just French.
Yeah,
Who
they
got his
waived him
ass
on his
kicked
team
by
option.
Draymond Green. That small print, yeah.
But what he's doing this year is crazy. I don't know if anyone's paying attention, but he has that Olympic run. They sign him to a $2 million
I think
deal.
everyone started paying attention when he dunked on LeBron.
That'll do it.
But in Philly, you know, Embiid's out and George is out every night, and all these different guys are missing for them. So this guy's playing big minutes every night. He's playing center sometimes. He's hitting all his threes. He's 50 from the field. He's a double-figure scorer.
And in case you guys missed it tonight, 28 on 12 for 17, 4 for 7. For everyone lamenting what Trey Murphy did to the Celtics tonight, you got the friggin' Denver got Yabu'd for 28 points. I don't know which is the greater anomaly. I would say that.
But he had 22 at Denver a couple weeks ago. So he's had big nights this season. And again, there's some positional versatility. The good thing about him, and there's a big pro and a con here, you can just absorb him into that empty roster spot. So there's not a salary thing here. He makes $2 million. He's not making any money. There's no real tax hit here you're worried about. I don't know how you would send Philly value here. And I saw a report today from Bagley, I think, that Philly doesn't actually want to trade Yabu. But their season's going to hell.
He's contributing and he costs nothing. Like,
right. It makes no sense.
Well, their season's going to hell. Their pick is going to Oklahoma City, top 6 protected from the Horford trade. So they have to manage that a little bit. I think they got to figure out, is Embiid coming back this year? Are we actually doing this thing? And they can't sign him because of cap stuff and they don't have bird rights. So you can't really keep him if you're them. Because if you look at the year he's had, he's probably made himself 10, 15, maybe upwards of 20 million a year.
Careful. You do this a lot. You just start throwing $20 million contracts at everybody who bats their eye at you. Like you got to
look at the numbers.
Look at
the numbers.
No, Bobby, we've done this.
So that's the downside for Boston too. If you bring him in, he's a pure rental. You can't sign him. I don't care if it's 5 million, 10 million, or 20 million. They can't afford that. So it's a rental. And would you give up a first round pick for a rental here? I think he plays a position you need pretty badly.
He's not a first round pick sort of trading guy. So
that's the tough thing. You probably can't get him without a first.
No, I mean, he's there's no doubt he's played well, and he has played his way into a significantly richer contract going forward. But I just don't think the Celtics would have the kind of assets that they're willing to part with in order to acquire him. And if we're being honest, how much do you really need?
I'd give up a
him?
second.
Oh, if that's all it's going to take, then absolutely. I mean, because remember, this guy was like 3 spots away from being a lottery pick when they drafted him. I mean, granted, they drafted him, and they could have drafted some dude named Pascal Siakam, who turned out to be a pretty good player. But this is, I think he's one of those guys who the way that he's playing works well in the situation and the scenario that he's in. But I'm not sure that will translate if he were back in Boston.
So he wouldn't be playing a ton.
Right. And I'm just not sure if he's the kind of guy that instead of playing really well over a 20, 25 minute period of time, can still play well if he's down to 10 to 15 minutes. Can he, and I'm not saying his numbers, could they be the same? I'm saying, could his impact in a smaller window to work with be similar? And I'm not sure about that. And I think the Celtics are kind of along the same lines as
he's playing 26 minutes a night for Philly. It's insane.
Yeah, but Embiid's out every night, so it's a little different.
I'm just saying it's a lot of minutes. He absolutely is. He's playing a lot, but I mean, it
really makes you think, like, how many other guys are out there overseas that just didn't have a breakout Olympic run where they dunked on LeBron and got everybody's attention that could be contributing in the NBA, because nobody was thinking about him a year ago. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great. Out of nowhere, he was a punchline. It was just he was a meme. He wasn't a viable NBA player. It's I love this story. I would love it. It's good vibes too,
and they're gonna see him Sunday.
I don't care if he's playing 10 to 12 minutes. If you found a way to get him for a second round pick and you throw him under that bench mob with Luke and oh my god,
you know how I feel, John.
The vibes would be outstanding.
That guy. Ever since Grant left, and I never want to see Grant go. They haven't had that 4-5 hybrid. Obviously, Horford does that, but he's more of a hybrid starter. They haven't had a guy off the bench who can play the 4 and the 5, give you some size with shooting. And again, you can't keep him. That's the killer. He's probably going to walk at the end of the year, but this could be a real boost to that bench. Obviously, there's a Hauser implication, though, that we've talked about a million times. Every time he misses a couple games here, I'm like, that happens in the playoffs, and you don't have someone who can slide into that rotation spot. You're going to be in some trouble there. And obviously, they were missing Horford and Hauser the last couple of games before this. So, Yabu's not exactly that player. I don't know if you're going to expect him to shoot 39 into the playoffs, but he's kept that up for a lot of this year, and there's some other aspects to his game that can be more helpful than even a Hauser. And those guys could obviously play together some. I want them to do something this week.
DeJounte Murray also in that draft, by the way. You went with Gersha, you went with Yabu and Ante Zizic, and you had a couple of other gems waiting there later. And again, if everybody hit on all of those, that was the
Jaylen Brown draft, though, right?
Because Brown went 3, and then Yabu 16 and Zizic in like 20-something, 23 or whatever.
They picked like 6 guys that year. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
amazing. You just need to win like 2 twice, and you're set. Like Tatum and Brown was enough to erase a lot of those mistakes.
I say this all the time. Like that's when people are like, "Whoa, he's not," Danny draft history and this and that. The impact of drafting those 2 guys drafting Tatum instead of whoever else, instead of Josh Jackson, or drafting Brown instead of Dragan Bender. Like those are the draft picks that set you back 15 years. And those guys were in play in those slots. Right. So like
Chris Dunn, even
that right there. Like, I mean, getting 2 all NBA players in those means you can blow every other pick for the next 5, 6, 7 years. It doesn't matter. It's just, you want to, if you could have just hit 1 late round home run, a Desmond Bain, instead of having to trade that
Pritchard.
pick to offload cash, when you took Pritchard there and then you offloaded that pick because you had to get off from what's his name?
Dennis Freedom.
The idiot, right? Freedom. You had to get off of him. Just one of those. You hit one of those and it changes you ended up with Maxey instead of which draft was that? Neesmith. Oh.
Hey, those weren't awful picks, though. Neesmith became a good player.
Franchise altering.
You got Rob.
The Tatum and Brown hits supersede all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and if you picked all the right picks all the time, you'd be the greatest team ever. So you're going to get hits and misses. And, the interesting thing now is going to be, and to your point, John, you can't give up a first for this guy. You probably can't give up a first for this guy because you have to start drafting first and hitting first now to keep this thing going. And they haven't had to do that since Danny left. So
Yeah, that's
I'm
why
gonna
I
be
hated
interested to
giving them
watch
up.
that.
Like I argued.
Well, it was a
back in the-
different era, John. You were trying to
I know,
build toward a
but I even
title,
argued
and there
back in the
wasn't
day.
roster
I
restrictions.
hated having to get off of Kemba, and to get Al Horford. I hated having to sell a first round pick,
That was
and
a
it ends
great
up
trade.
being Şengün. So like I get it, but like you need you got to get one of those. They haven't gotten one in a long time. You got to get one. To be
Right.
able to reload, or else you're going to get expensive. This is why they are where they are. Not having drafted your Maxey, your Şengün, your whatever, your next core player, star, controllable for 7 years that you don't have to pay, anything beyond a rookie deal for the first 3, 4, 5 is why they're the most expensive team in the history of sports, and why they're probably going to have to start to break it apart after this year, because you don't have the max guys with the cheaper guys, and then making decisions down the road, you're paying everybody at once. So it's you need them. You got to be careful, but like all the Baylor Sharmans in the world aren't gonna, turn this ship around. You got to hit a home run. Even if he ends up being a rotational player somewhere, you got to get one.
Right. So that might be why you don't do too much this week. We'll see, but I would like them to go out and get a win.
No. What do you want to see them do?
I mean, I'd like to see them sign a 15th player and eat the tax bill, because what do I care about the tax bill?
Exactly.
Like,
this is not why we got into watching sports, so people could save
What do
money.
I care about the
so
tax
billionaires
bills?
could
Okay.
save their money.
Why do I want an empty roster spot? Sign to somebody there. They can help. If not, they can be somebody
Tatum
cool we
gets
can
an
write
extra
about.
locker.
Like,
That's
I
what we all
mean,
need in life,
I want them
an
to keep
extra
Springer,
locker.
but honestly, at this point, like, I'm just a fan of Springer's game, that I'm almost like, if he's not going to play here, just send him somewhere else, give him a chance. The only
I
thing that makes
don't
me
want
nervous
them
is
to
that
trade him. I'll be
this is two
Be
teams
free,
now that
Jade.
have.
Be free.
Well, but Philadelphia didn't play him either, so I'm
No.
almost like, maybe they know something that I don't, and he's really not going to work out. But I'm okay with them standing pat. I mean,
What would you
Tillman
be
really has
okay
given
trading
them.
Springer for?
I don't know. I don't have like a guy off the top of my head,
I'm
but
telling you guys, if they trade Springer, it's going to be cap relief. It's going to be tax relief.
ugh, I can't do cap relief.
Yeah.
It's so boring. No, Xavier Tillman is the one guy that, like, he
I-
really has brought
I
them
want
nothing
trade
this year. I
exceptions.
just
I
don't
miss
think
those.
I don't
Oh.
think that there's value for him. So
No.
I don't think
There's
so either.
wonderful trade exceptions.
I miss
Yeah.
trade exceptions. Everyone thought those
Again,
things
though,
were
if
like you could just cash them in, like they were like
Like
you
they're
just get a-
coupons. They're
you
what
get
not.
a
happened to the
free
Grant
30
Williams trade
million-
exception? What
You
happened
get
to
a
it?
free $18 million player with the Fournette trade exception. You just have to take it to the player store and just hand it to them, and they'll just give you a guy.
They got
That
Richardson out
is
of
the
that,
vibe
though.
around it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that got you white. So that
Ooh.
one worked out.
Yeah.
Fournier, though, not so much.
Yeah.
No.
TPE. Oh, I miss TPE. The TPE era was one of the darkest eras. It's like we're trying to like create this magic trick with TPEs.
The season was falling apart because they gave up Hayward, and we're just like, when they use the TP, they'll be fine. And then it was Fournier, and it was not fine.
Yeah. I got nothing. I came in late. I don't want to keep talking about stuff you guys talked about. I was out, and I just
I
wanted to
think we're
jump
good.
on. Yeah.
That was all I had. Unless you want to shower Jalen and praise John, but
Yeah.
congrats
Why?
to him.
For what? Oh,
Made
the All-Star.
team.
He did. I mean, look, championship credentials, those are strong. And Bobby, you make a point. I don't know that there's forwards. There was a lot of guards, who are probably more deserving. It's kind of tough to find a forward and be like, oh, robbed here. I also don't know that it necessarily matters, because so many people are kind of positionless here, but like definitely made it on the heels of last year, but also I don't think you could say that he's not deserving. No one thinks that this was outrageous. I think the only weird thing is LaMelo not making the team was my only.
That
Also,
kills
I
me.
do think
I
just
want to
across
watch
the
him in this.
board,
What's
in
that,
both
Noah?
conferences. No, in both conferences, you could just tell that winning was rewarded over like fan favorites.
Yeah,
They
three
almost went down
Cavs.
like 3 for the Cavs, 2 for the Celtics, 2 for the and fans at home don't care about that. They want to see like their favorite players. So there's a little bit of a disconnect between the voting system really favoring winning and like my little brother being like, why is LaMelo not in the All-Star game? And it's like they just don't care about the bottom seed teams. You have to be like insane on the lower seeded teams to be an All-Star. So to me, it's like Jalen was kind of a no-brainer for that reason. And Tyrese Maxey, for example, like you're not going to be an All-Star when your team has been as bad as they've been, even though he's had a better month here.
I also don't think the coaches pay close attention to this stuff, Sherrod. Like, we've been over that for years. They just toss it to an assistant, and they probably pick the guy who's winning. So that's,
They do.
Hero gets in. Young was a snub too. That one doesn't make much sense with the stats.
Maxey's on a heater, but he hasn't had a great year. It's been a straight volume
Right.
year where he's had to shoot
Yeah.
a ton because
No, he
Embiid
wasn't
is
a
out.
snub. The snubs were
His
Young and
last
Noah.
5, 6, 7 games have been great, but he honestly, like, he's been okay. Like, he's been fine. He was better last year, honestly, overall in terms of efficiency. He's got to shoulder a bigger load because they've been a mess all year.
There weren't
mean,
really any forward snubs, to your point, John, though. Like, Barnes was hurt, Embiid's hurt, Paolo's hurt, Franz is hurt. Like, all the guys who would have been in
I go
contention for
LaMelo
Scope
over
Jalen
Hero.
were hurt.
That's about it.
Yeah.
That was I mean, I would take Melo over Hero. I'd take
I
Trae
would've taken
Young
Maxey
over
too.
Tyler Hero. I mean, Tyler Hero to me, he's the outlier. I mean, because whenever I hear people
And
talk
Sabonis
about
in the
so-and-so
West.
got snub, is there someone on the team that you think should be not on the team? And Tyler Hero's the guy. Miami's not very good. Tyler is about as one-dimensional a player as there is on the All-Star team. And Trae Young leads the freaking league in assists. I mean, and he's playing the kind of basketball that we have basically been criticizing him for years for not playing. And he's not rewarded for that.
I think if either of those guys were more efficient this season, they would benefit. Like Trae Young shooting 40% from the field, LaMelo shooting 41%. Tyler Hero has been really efficient this season, and I think that's probably where they lost. Even though, and also he's on a better team than both those guys. And I mean, LaMelo has been injured,
And he's been
too,
good.
so
He deserves
they
it.
might have to weigh the fan vote more ultimately though, because the fans are the ones that are tuning in, and if the fans are pissed off that the guy they voted for, number one in the entire conference, is not there, like. It's kind of like it's an all-star game ultimately. It's not all NBA. It doesn't determine contracts for the most part, right?
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's the answer, is just
Right.
giving it to the fans a little bit more.
Yeah,
so
LaMelo's
they're
just
happy.
chucking right now. His 3-point
so much
percentage is
fun in
down
this game, though.
after a hot start to the year too. So Jaylen Brown did it again. Not giving the Celtics 2 All-Stars is ridiculous. I think Derek White might have made a case, but boy, would that have been interesting if White made it over Brown as the second Celtic. I can't wait for the
Wasn't gonna
eyeball
happen with the
cryptic
past
tweets.
month.
You know,
The emojis, bring them.
the
Bring
Nike
'em.
conspiracies and all of that. But yeah, no, I mean, there was no way. I didn't mean to put that one up, Bobby. I had my fingers fast. Sorry. I didn't
Wait, which one
mean-
did you put up?
I didn't.
I've been getting a lot of crap tonight. I had to sit in the John chair tonight, John, so that kind of comes with it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you
Listen, I
say
gave
John?
you a
Did you say John
start
things?
off.
Because that's usually the bigger issue, not
Yeah,
the
I
chair.
said John thing.
Okay.
right.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
But,
I'm sorry I
yeah.
put you in that position.
Come out, play great against Philly, run them off the floor the way you should. I think all those guys are going to be out again, and they'll keep going in the right direction here. So they're climbing out of it, John. February's about to start, fresh start. They're healthy. I love what Porzingis is doing. So we'll be down there. We'll have coverage. It's a 6:00 game, which is nice, and looking forward to seeing that crowd and what the vibes are like down there, because it has not been a pretty season for that Philly team.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for having me, guys.
All right. Any last
You want to say
thoughts,
goodbye,
Noah?
Bobby? You
Sherrod?
started the show. You can take us home.
Any last
I'll
thoughts,
press. I'll
guys?
press the button. You say goodbye when you're ready.
All
Yeah,
good.
we're done. See you guys on Sunday. We'll talk to you then.
No one's sneaking a vegan brownie by me, I'll tell you that.
Okay, you know what, John? We're gonna do it.
You have to feel that way too, Bobby.
I have to
Same.
feel that
Same.
way. Let's
Yeah.
fly Al over and make Luke your first center.
Bobby, we gave you Luke hour early. We are not going to end this on a damn conversation about Luke